Hello everyone, my name is Isabelle and today we're talking about is carbon offsetting greenwashing or is it an effective tool to combat climate change? So what is carbon offsetting? Carbon offsetting means balancing out carbon emissions that are produced by supporting projects that reduce or take away the carbon that is released into the atmosphere. An example of this would be a company such as Greening Australia, which plants native Australian trees to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. However, the activities of planting trees is not without criticism. For example, how much water do the trees use? How much land is needed? Do they create monocultures? What happens if they burn down, releasing carbon? These criticisms may fall under an umbrella known as greenwashing. So what is greenwashing? Well, greenwashing is when a company dishonestly promotes a product or a service to be more eco-friendly than it actually is. For example, a company that makes eco-friendly products, but they don't back it up. So why do we all care about this? Well, by now, I'm pretty sure we've all heard about climate change. But what is climate change? Climate change refers to long-term changes in the Earth's weather, environment, and temperature. This is mainly caused by the activities of burning fossil fuels and deforestation. These activities create a large amount of greenhouse gases that get trapped in the atmosphere, which increases the Earth's temperature. So, is carbon offsetting greenwashing? In some instances, carbon offsetting has been accused of greenwashing, as it provides businesses a license to continue polluting without meaningful changes to their activities. However, is this always the case? Let's look at sustainable aviation fuel as our example. What is sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF? Well, SAF is a fuel made from waste or renewable materials such as food waste and forestry waste, oils, fats, and greases. While the consumption of both SAF and traditional jet fuels creates CO2, fossil-derived jet fuels require carbon offsetting, such as planting trees, which can be wasteful, as trees require a large amount of arable land and water. The renewable biomass used to make SAF sequesters carbon from the atmosphere in order to grow, resulting in the CO2 emissions from SAF returning back to the short carbon cycle, preventing the extraction of new fossil fuels from underground. So let's take a look at a local example. Qantas. So how is Qantas marketing the use of SAF? Qantas is marketing the use of SAF as the future of aviation, having brought 10 million litres of SAF at the start of 2022. This is the equivalent of around 9% of the fuel used annually from all flights out of London. Additionally, Qantas has set a current goal of net zero by 2050 and using a blend of 10% SAF fuel by 2030 and 60% of SAF fuel by 2050. Qantas also wants to develop a SAF industry in Australia, having signed an agreement which will invest over $200 million into the local SAF industry. Qantas believes that by having a domestic SAF industry in Australia, it would develop regional growth, energy resilience and waste management benefits for Australia. SAF sounds like a great way forward. So what are the drawbacks? Well, SAF is more expensive than fossil fuels, so this will be passed down to the consumer or will require government subsidy, which will require money from the taxpayers. This is the main constraint to widespread adoption. Additionally, other energy sources are competing for the small amount of renewable feedstock, and perception of CO2-based fuels are difficult to overcome. So, are there any alternatives? Aviation is a hard sector to adapt, as battery-powered planes are too heavy and hydrogen-powered planes are too big. So if you're looking for alternatives to flying, you can catch a train, which can be a viable option if you want to travel across the country. However, travelling internationally across large stretches of water is not viable. Travelling by a cruise ship is another non-flying option, as large passenger cruise ships emits 0.43 kg of CO2 compared to 0.257 kg of CO2 per passenger for flying. You can also take public transport or catch a coach bus. However, all these options take far longer than flying. So what are our key takeaways? Well, greenwashing is not legitimate for industries that refuse to adapt out of profit or tradition, but it's more complex for aviation, as it has fewer commercially or technically viable alternatives. SAF is a lower carbon alternative to fossil-deprived jet fuel. It can be made out of sustainable feedstock or directly captured from CO2. While SAF emits CO2 when burned, in a plane engine, it helps keep carbon in a short carbon cycle, preventing us from digging up more carbon from underground. So while there is a number of different ways to make SAF, clarity is required around certification to ensure it can be used to generate offsets.